Little alien girl was being kidnapped, and only the human realized something was wrong. The stench of Nexus 6 hit Ryan Blackwood like a sledgehammer. Sweat, alien pheromones, and the metallic tang of cheap synthetic food carts created a sensory assault that never quite became tolerable, no matter how many years he'd spent in the cesspool of a spaceport. Ryan adjusted his worn synth leather jacket, feeling the comforting weight of the concealed pulse pistol against his ribs. 6 years since he'd left Earth's military, and still the habit of staying armed remained. In a place like Nexus 6, that wasn't paranoia, it was survival. Fresh Earth liquor, genuine Terran whiskey, a 3-armed Vexillian merchant called out as Ryan passed. "That swill hasn't seen Earth," Ryan muttered, pushing through the crowded marketplace. His tall, muscular frame gave him an advantage as he navigated the crush of bodies. The stubble on his jaw itched in the humid air, and he ran a hand through his dark, tousled hair. The Grand Nexus Marketplace was the beating heart of this sprawling station, a melting pot where 1,000 species came to trade, swindle, and occasionally murder each other. Officially, it was a neutral port under Galactic Confederation jurisdiction. Unofficially, it was a lawless frontier where credits talked and everything was for sale. Ryan was here for parts. His transport ship needed a new atmospheric regulator, and Nexus 6 was the only place within 3 jumps where he could find one, without answering questions about registration or permits. Just another day of scraping by in the outer systems. That's when he saw them. A massive draconian, at least 7 feet tall with scale skin and a military-style uniform that had seen better days, was dragging a small figure through the crowd. At first glance, it might have looked like an impatient parent with a difficult child, but Ryan's instincts flared immediately. The small figure was a humanoid alien child, no more than 5 or 6 by human standards, with soft blue skin and vibrant purple hair that stuck out in messy tufts. She wore a thin pink shirt stained with what looked like dirt and blood. But it was her eyes that stopped Ryan cold, wide, terrified, and filled with tears above a crude cloth gag. "Hey!" Ryan called out, changing course to intercept them. "Hold up there!" The draconian's head swiveled, yellow eyes narrowing. "Not your business, human. Move along!" Ryan stepped directly into their path, his stance widening slightly. "Made it my business. What's with the gag?" Brat won't shut up, disturbing everyone with her screaming. The draconian's breath reeked of fermented krill. "My niece," taking her back to her father. Ryan looked down at the girl whose eyes were now fixed on him with desperate intensity. She was trying to communicate something through the gag, making muffled sounds and shaking her head violently. "Funny," Ryan said, not smiling. "She doesn't seem happy about that reunion." The draconian's hand moved toward a blade at his belt. "Humans, always interfering. This is family business." "Then you won't mind if I ask her a question." Ryan crouched down to the girl's eye level, maintaining awareness of the draconian's movements. "Just one question, and if everything's fine, I'll be on my way." The draconian hesitated, then gave a curt nod. Ryan carefully removed the gag from the girl's mouth. "Please," she whispered in accented common, her voice trembling. "He took me from my mother. I don't know him. Please help me." The draconian lunged forward with surprising speed, but Ryan was ready. He blocked the attack and delivered a precise strike to the alien's throat, right at the vulnerable gill slits all draconians possessed. The larger alien stumbled back, choking and gasping. "Security!" Ryan shouted, drawing the attention of 2 Confederation peacekeepers who had been lounging near a food stall. "Attempted kidnapping." The marketplace erupted into chaos as the draconian recovered and pulled his blade. Ryan pushed the girl behind him, drawing his pulse pistol in one fluid motion. "Don't," he warned, aiming center mass. "Not worth dying over." The draconian's eyes darted between Ryan, the approaching peacekeepers, and the gathering crowd. With a snarl of rage, he turned and bolted, shoving bystanders aside as he disappeared into the throng. Ryan holstered his weapon and turned to the girl, who was shaking violently. Tears streamed down her blue cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered. "He said he would sell me." "There are others too." Ryan felt a cold fury building in his chest. "What's your name, kid?" "Lena," she said, wiping her eyes. "Lena Terrace. I'm Ryan. Let's find your mother and get you home." He offered his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, she took it. Her small blue fingers trembled in his grasp. As they walked away from the scene, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. The Draconian hadn't been working alone. Child trafficking was big business in the outer systems. By interfering, Ryan had just painted a target on his back. But looking down at Lena's relieved face, he knew he'd make the same choice again. Some lines you didn't cross, not even in a place like Nexus 6. What he didn't know was that saving this one small alien girl would unravel a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of the Galactic Confederation itself. "This is absurd," Ryan muttered, staring at the Confederation security officer across the desk. The alien, a Tellurian with gray skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, blinked each eye independently as he filed the report. "Kidnapping claims require substantial evidence, human," the officer said, his voice clicking through translator implants. "We have no visual confirmation, no witnesses willing to come forward, and no record of this. Draconian you describe in our database." Ryan leaned forward. "The kid has bruises." She was gagged. "What more do you need?" "Children fall. Children play rough games." The officer's upper eyes focused on Lena, who sat huddled against Ryan's side. "Perhaps you misunderstood the situation. Cultural differences, yes?" "Cultural differences, my ass," Ryan growled. "Look, I need to find her mother. Can you at least help with that?" The Tellurian's mouth parts twitched in what might have been amusement. "Of course." "Name?" "Taris," Lena said quietly. "My mother is Azara Taris. We live in Sector 17, Habitation Ring." The officer made a show of checking his terminal. "No Azara Taris registered in Sector 17. No Taris family at all, in fact." Ryan felt Lena's small hand grip his tighter. "That's impossible," she whispered. "We've lived there for 3 cycles." Something wasn't right. Ryan had dealt with enough bureaucratic stonewalling to recognize it. He stood, pulling Lena gently with him. "Thanks for nothing," he said flatly. "We'll find her ourselves." Outside the security office, Ryan knelt to Lena's level. "Your mother, is there anywhere she might go if there was trouble? Friends? Work?" Lena's eyes darted nervously around the corridor. "She works at the medical center in Sector 12. She's a genetic specialist." Ryan nodded. "That's our next stop, then." As they moved through the station's main thoroughfare, Ryan's combat instincts tingled. They were being followed, not obviously, but definitely tracked. He caught glimpses. A Vexillian pretending to shop but moving when they moved, a hooded figure maintaining perfect distance behind them. "Lena," Ryan said casually, "let's play a game. I'm going to pick you up and you're going to pretend to be asleep on my shoulder, okay?" She nodded, understanding in her eyes beyond her years. Ryan lifted her, and she immediately went limp, her face pressed against his neck. "There are 3 of them," she whispered, her breath warm against his skin. "1 behind, 2 ahead, waiting. Not like the one who took me. Different species." Ryan's respect for the kid notched higher. "Good eye. We're going to lose them." He ducked suddenly into a service corridor, moving quickly through the maintenance passages he'd learned during his years of smuggling runs. The station's underbelly was a maze, but one he knew well. After 15 minutes of evasive maneuvers, they emerged in Sector 12, the medical district. The gleaming white corridors and antiseptic smell were a stark contrast to the grime of the marketplace. "My mother's lab is on level 3, Lena said as Ryan set her down. The receptionist, a blue-skinned female of Lena's species, gasped when they approached. "Lena! By the stars! Your mother has been frantic." "Where is she?" Ryan asked. "In her lab." "I'll call her immediately." Moments later, a slender figure burst through the doors. Ryan's breath caught involuntarily. Azara Taris had the same blue skin and violet hair as her daughter, but where Lena was childishly cute, her mother was striking. Tall for her species, though still a head shorter than Ryan, with delicate features and large almond-shaped eyes of deepest indigo. Her hair was pulled back in an intricate braid, and her lab coat did little to hide her graceful figure. "Lena!" she cried, dropping to her knees and embracing her daughter. "I thought I'd lost you forever." "This human saved me, Mother," Lena said, pointing to Ryan. "His name is Ryan." Izara looked up, her eyes meeting his. Something electric passed between them. Gratitude, certainly, but something more primal as well. A recognition. "Thank you," she said, her voice melodic even through the translator. "I have no words." "No thanks needed," Ryan replied, suddenly aware of his disheveled appearance. But we need to talk. Somewhere private. You're both in danger. Azara nodded, rising to her feet. My office. Follow me. As they walked, Ryan noticed her graceful movements, the subtle sway of her hips. He forced himself to focus. This wasn't the time. In her office, a sterile space filled with holographic displays of DNA sequences, Azara secured the door and turned to Ryan. Tell me everything, she demanded. Ryan explained the encounter in the marketplace, the uncooperative security officer, and their pursuers. Azara's expression darkened with each detail. They're after my research, she said finally. It has to be. What research? Ryan asked. Azara hesitated, glancing at her daughter. I've discovered something unprecedented, a genetic compatibility that shouldn't exist. Between what species? Between mine and... She met his eyes directly. A human's. Ryan felt a jolt of surprise. That's impossible. Humans can barely interbreed with other human subspecies from the colonies, let alone alien species. That's what makes it so valuable, Azara said softly, and so dangerous in the wrong hands. Their eyes locked again, and Ryan became acutely aware of the small space between them, of her scent, something like cinnamon and ozone. He cleared his throat. We need to get you both somewhere safe. My ship is docked in Bay 47. We can... A sudden pounding on the door interrupted him. Dr. Terrace, security, open immediately. Ryan's hand went to his pulse pistol. Back door? Azara nodded, already moving to a panel on the wall. This way, quickly. As the panel slid open, revealing a narrow maintenance corridor, Ryan couldn't help but think that his life had just become infinitely more complicated and infinitely more interesting. The maintenance corridor was barely wide enough for Ryan's shoulders. Emergency lighting cast everything in a dim red glow, making Azara's blue skin appear almost purple. Lena clung to her mother's hand, surprisingly calm for a child who'd been through so much. These tunnels connect the entire station, Azara whispered as they moved. Maintenance staff use them to avoid disrupting medical procedures. Convenient, Ryan replied, leading the way with his pulse pistol drawn. How far to the nearest exit point toward the docking bays? 3 junctions ahead, but Ryan... Azara caught his arm, her touch sending an unexpected jolt through him. I need to explain what's happening. Why they want my research. Ryan glanced back at the sealed panel they'd escaped through. No sounds of pursuit yet, but that wouldn't last. Walk and talk, he suggested. We need to keep moving. Azara nodded, keeping her voice low as they navigated the narrow passage. My species, the Cerulean, have always been prized for our adaptability. Our genetic structure is flexible in ways other species aren't. Flexible how? Ryan asked, trying to focus on her words rather than the way her lab coat occasionally brushed against him in the tight space. We can incorporate beneficial genetic traits from other species through prolonged exposure. It's how we evolved, adapting to new environments by selectively adopting genetic advantages from native species. Ryan raised an eyebrow. That sounds more like a virus than evolution. Azara's lips curved into a smile that made his pulse quicken. A common misconception. It's controlled, selective, and requires generations. But my research discovered something unprecedented. She lowered her voice further. Human DNA is uniquely compatible with ours. Not just compatible, complementary. They reached a junction, and Ryan checked all directions before motioning them forward. What does that mean exactly? He asked. It means... Azara hesitated, glancing at Lena, who was focused on navigating the dim corridor. It means natural reproduction between our species wouldn't just be possible. It would create offspring with advantages from both genetic lines. Something that's never happened before in cross-species breeding. Ryan nearly missed a step. That's significant. It's revolutionary, Azara corrected, and dangerous in the wrong hands. The Syndicate wants to weaponize it, create biological agents that target specific genetic markers. With my research, they could develop pathogens that affect every species except humans and Ceruleans. A genetic alliance, Ryan murmured. No wonder they're hunting you. They reached another junction, and Ryan held up his hand, signaling them to stop. Voices echoed faintly from one of the connecting corridors. Security forces spreading through the maintenance network. "This way," he whispered, choosing the path that angled downward. The passage narrowed further, forcing them to move single file. Ryan went first, then Lena, with Azara bringing up the rear. The air grew warmer, more humid. They were approaching the station's environmental systems. The corridor curved sharply, then opened into a small maintenance hub, a junction point with barely enough room for the three of them to stand. "We need to catch our breath," Ryan decided, holstering his weapon. "Lena, you doing okay?" The girl nodded bravely. "I'm not scared with you here." Something warm expanded in Ryan's chest at her simple trust. He turned to Azara, finding her much closer than expected in the confined space. Their bodies were nearly touching, her face tilted up to his, those indigo eyes reflecting the red emergency lights. "Your daughter is remarkably resilient," he said softly. "She takes after her father," Azara replied, then added, "He died 2 years ago. Mining accident in the Cygnus Belt. I'm sorry, don't be." He was not a kind man. Her eyes searched his face. "Not like you." The air between them seemed to charge with electricity. Ryan became acutely aware of her breathing, the subtle scent of her skin, the way her lips parted slightly as she looked at him. "I'm not always kind," he said, his voice rougher than intended. "You were kind when it mattered," she countered, her hand coming to rest lightly on his chest. "You saw my daughter when no one else would. You risked yourself for a stranger." Ryan swallowed hard. "Anyone would have—" "No," she interrupted. "They wouldn't. I've seen how most humans and aliens treat each other on this station. Indifference is the best one can hope for. What you did was exceptional." Her fingers traced a pattern on his chest, sending heat spiraling through him. Ryan knew he should step back, maintain professional distance. They were running for their lives, after all. But the small space made that impossible, and if he was honest with himself, he didn't want to. "There's something else about my research," Azara whispered, her face inches from his. "The compatibility works on a neurochemical level too. Our species are attuned to each other in ways I'm only beginning to understand." Ryan's hand moved of its own accord, brushing a strand of violet hair from her face. "Is that what this is? Some kind of biochemical reaction?" Her smile was both knowing and vulnerable. "Does it matter?" Before he could answer, a distant clang echoed through the corridors. Lena pressed closer to her mother, and the moment shattered. "We need to keep moving," Ryan said, reluctantly putting space between them. "My ship is in Bay 47. If we can reach it, I can get you both off station." "And then what?" Azara asked. Ryan hadn't thought that far ahead. His life had been a series of cargo runs and odd jobs since leaving the military. No attachments, no responsibilities. Now suddenly he was responsible for 2 lives, caught in a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of power. "Then we figure it out together," he said finally, "one step at a time." The look Azara gave him, hope mixed with something deeper, made that impulsive promise feel right. Whatever was happening between them, whatever dangers lay ahead, Ryan knew with absolute certainty that he wouldn't abandon them. "Bay 47, he repeated, checking his weapon. "Let's move." The final stretch of maintenance corridor opened into a dimly lit access tunnel that led directly to the docking bays. Ryan paused at the threshold, his instinct screaming caution. "Something's wrong," he whispered, holding out an arm to keep Azara and Lena back. "It's too quiet." The docking bay access corridor should have been bustling with cargo handlers, maintenance droids, and the usual mix of travelers. Instead, it was deserted. "Could be a security lockdown," Azara suggested, her shoulder pressing against his as she peered around him. Ryan shook his head. "No alarms, no announcements. This is something else." He turned to Lena. "Stay close to your mother. If anything happens, run back the way we came. Understand?" The girl nodded solemnly. Ryan drew his pulse pistol and stepped cautiously into the corridor, every sense alert for danger. They made it halfway to the bay entrance before the trap sprung. Panels slid open on both sides of the corridor, revealing armed figures, a mix of species, all wearing the same dark body armor with a red insignia Ryan didn't recognize. "Syndicate enforcers," Azara breathed, pulling Lena behind her. "Drop your weapon, human," ordered a tall insectoid alien, its mandibles clicking between words. "The female and her research belong to us." Ryan assessed the situation with cold precision. 6 enforcers, all armed with military-grade weapons. No cover in the corridor. Odds of fighting their way out? Minimal. "Okay, easy," he said, slowly lowering his pistol to the ground. "No need for violence." The insectoid alien stepped forward, compound eyes gleaming with triumph. "The Cerulean female has violated her contract with the Syndicate. The penalty is, hey, ugly! Remember me?" The new voice came from behind the Syndicate forces. A human figure stepped into view at the far end of the corridor, tall, broad-shouldered, with a military bearing that Ryan recognized instantly. Anthony. Ryan couldn't hide his shock. Anthony Vega, former Alliance Marine, Ryan's squad leader during the Proxima Centauri conflict, and the last person he expected to see on this station, grinned wolfishly. "Still getting yourself into shit situations, I see." The distraction was all Ryan needed. In one fluid motion, he drew a backup pistol from his ankle holster and fired at the nearest enforcer, simultaneously shoving Azara and Lena toward a recessed doorway. The corridor erupted into chaos. Anthony opened fire from his position, catching the Syndicate forces in a deadly crossfire. Ryan dove for cover, squeezing off precise shots that dropped two more enforcers. "Stay down!" he shouted to Azara, who had pulled Lena tight against her, shielding the child with her body. The insectoid leader chittered in rage, firing wildly at Anthony while backing toward Ryan's position. Ryan waited for the perfect moment, then lunged forward, tackling the alien to the ground. They grappled briefly before Ryan slammed the butt of his pistol into the junction between the creature's head and thorax, a killing blow. Seconds later, it was over. The remaining enforcers retreated, dragging their wounded. "Clear!" Anthony called, approaching with his weapon still ready. "You okay, Blackwood?" "Fine," Ryan replied, retrieving his dropped pistol. "What the hell are you doing here?" "Working security for Nexus Corp," Anthony said, then nodded toward Azara and Lena. "Heard chatter about a human causing trouble with a Cerulean scientist. Figured it had to be you." Ryan made the introductions quickly. "Anthony Vega, this is Dr. Izara Taris and her daughter Lena. Anthony and I served together." "Brothers in arms," Anthony corrected, holstering his weapon. "And apparently still saving your ass." Izara stepped forward, her indigo eyes assessing Anthony with cautious gratitude. "Thank you for your help, but we need to keep moving. The Syndicate won't give up easily." "My ship's in Bay 47, Ryan said. "If we can reach it." "Forget it," Anthony interrupted. "They've locked down all civilian vessels. Standard procedure during a security incident." He made air quotes around the phrase, "which is what they're calling this little firefight." Ryan cursed under his breath. "Options? I've got a corporate shuttle in the executive bay. Diplomatic clearance, pre-approved flight plan." Anthony grinned. "Benefits of working for the man." "Can you get us off station?" Azara asked. Anthony's expression grew serious. "Depends. Ryan here is a pain in the ass, but I trust him with my life. If he's helping you, you must be worth it. So level with me." "What's this really about?" Azara hesitated, then straightened her shoulders. "My research. It proves humans and Ceruleans share a unique genetic compatibility that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. And the Syndicate wants to weaponize it," Ryan added. Anthony whistled low. "That's heavy." "Will you help us?" Azara pressed. Anthony looked between them, his gaze lingering on Lena, who stared back with solemn eyes. Something in his expression softened. "Yeah, I'll help, but we need to move now." They followed Anthony through a series of security corridors accessible only to station personnel. Ryan kept close to Azara, hyper-aware of her presence beside him. The adrenaline of combat was fading, replaced by a different kind of tension between them. "Your friend," she said quietly as they walked. "He came for you without question." "That's what humans do for each other," Ryan replied. "At our best, anyway." "My people are not so instinctively loyal," she admitted. "We calculate risks, weigh benefits. It's our nature." "And yet you risked everything for your daughter," Ryan pointed out. "Seems pretty instinctive to me." Her hand brushed against his, fingers intertwining briefly. "Perhaps I'm evolving," she murmured, with a smile that made his heart race. They reached a private elevator that took them directly to the executive docking level, a stark contrast to the utilitarian corridors they'd been navigating. Polished surfaces, soft lighting, and the conspicuous absence of security checkpoints spoke of privilege and power. Perks of the corporate life, Anthony explained, leading them toward a sleek shuttle. Almost makes up for selling my soul. As they approached the vessel, Ryan felt Azara tense beside him. "What is it?" he asked. "We're being watched," she whispered. "Cerulean intuition. Someone's here." Anthony drew his weapon, scanning the bay. "I don't see." The shot came from nowhere, a high-energy pulse that struck Anthony in the shoulder, spinning him around. Ryan shoved Azara and Lena behind a cargo container, returning fire toward the source of the attack. "Get to the shuttle," he shouted, helping Anthony to cover. "I'll hold them off." Azara hesitated, her eyes meeting his with an intensity that conveyed everything words couldn't in that moment. Then she grabbed Lena's hand and ran for the shuttle. As Ryan prepared to make his stand, he realized with perfect clarity that he would die to protect them if necessary, not just out of duty or principle, but because in the space of mere hours, they had become essential to him in ways he couldn't yet fully comprehend. "I'm not leaving you," Ryan shouted to Anthony over the barrage of energy blasts striking their cover. "Don't be stupid," Anthony growled, clutching his wounded shoulder. "Get the girl and her mother out of here. That's an order." "You're not my commanding officer anymore," Ryan retorted, firing 3 precise shots that forced their attackers to retreat momentarily, and humans don't leave their own behind. From the shuttle's ramp, Azara called out, "Ryan! We need to go now." Ryan's mind raced. The Syndicate forces were regrouping, at least 8 of them advancing in tactical formation. He couldn't fight them all, but he refused to abandon Anthony. Then it hit him, something Azara had mentioned about her research: genetic compatibility, neurochemical attunement. "My comm unit," Ryan said suddenly, ripping the device from his wrist. "Anthony, what frequency does station security use for their neural dampeners?" Despite his pain, Anthony grinned with understanding. "The anti-riot tech? 15.8 kilohertz. Why?" "Because," Ryan said, rapidly reconfiguring his comm unit, "if Ceruleans and humans are neurochemically compatible, then maybe..." He finished the modifications and activated the device. Nothing happened for a moment, then a high-pitched whine filled the air, inaudible to human ears but apparently devastating to their attackers. The Syndicate forces dropped their weapons, clutching their heads in agony. Several of the insectoid aliens began convulsing, their exoskeletons vibrating violently. "Holy shit," Anthony breathed. "What did you do?" "Humans have been using sound as a weapon since the 21st century, Ryan explained, helping Anthony to his feet. "I just modified the frequency to target non-human neural pathways. Let's go before they adapt." They staggered toward the shuttle where Azara stood wide-eyed at the ramp. "How did you, Your research gave me the idea," Ryan said, helping Anthony aboard. "If our species are neurochemically attuned, then other species must be differently tuned." "Human ingenuity," Anthony grunted as Azara helped lower him onto a seat. "It's why we survived first contact when everyone expected us to be wiped out." Ryan sealed the hatch and moved to the cockpit. "Lena, buckle in," he called to the girl, who was already strapped into a jump seat, watching everything with solemn eyes. The shuttle's controls were familiar enough. Ryan had flown similar models during his military service. He powered up the engines and engaged the launch sequence. "We have diplomatic clearance codes," Anthony said, wincing as Azara applied a med patch to his wound. "Authorization Delta 79. Ryan input the codes, and to his relief, the docking bay doors began to open. "Hold on," he warned, then punched the thrusters to maximum. The shuttle shot forward, clearing the station before their pursuers could recover. As they accelerated away from Nexus 6, Ryan plotted a course for the nearest Alliance outpost, New Terra Colony, about 18 hours at their current speed. He engaged the autopilot and turned to check on the others. Anthony had passed out, the med patch working to stabilize his condition. Lena had curled up in a seat, exhaustion finally claiming her. And Azara was watching him with an expression that made his pulse quicken. "That was remarkable," she said softly, moving to stand beside him in the cockpit. "What you did back there?" Ryan shrugged, suddenly self-conscious. "Just applied what you told me about your research." "No," she insisted, her hand coming to rest on his arm. "It was more than that. You saw a connection I hadn't even considered. In moments of crisis, your species doesn't just fight, you innovate." "We had to," Ryan replied. "Humans were never the strongest or fastest when we joined the galactic community. We had to be the smartest, or at least the most adaptable. Azara's fingers traced a pattern on his forearm, sending shivers up his spine. My people have studied humans for generations. We documented your physical attributes, your social structures, your technological capabilities. But we never truly understood. Understood what? Ryan asked, his voice dropping to match her intimate tone. Your spirit, she said simply. The way you refused to leave your friend. The way you saw my daughter when no one else would. The way you fight not just with weapons, but with your minds. Her hand moved to his chest, resting over his heart. It's beautiful, she whispered, and terrifying. Ryan covered her hand with his own. The blue of her skin contrasted with his tan complexion, yet somehow they seemed to belong together. Terrifying? Because it makes me feel things I shouldn't, she admitted. Cerulean scientists are taught to observe, analyze, remain detached. But with you. Her eyes met his, indigo depths filled with wonder and desire. With you, I can't remain detached. The space between them vanished as Ryan leaned down, his lips meeting hers. The kiss was tentative at first, then deepened as Azara responded with unexpected passion. Her skin was cooler than a human's, but warming rapidly beneath his touch. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing heavily. I've never, she began. With a human? Ryan finished. She nodded. Is it always like this? Ryan smiled, brushing a strand of violet hair from her face. No, this is different. A soft chime from the console interrupted them. Proximity alert. Ryan reluctantly turned to check the readings. Patrol vessel, he reported. Confederation registry, but on an unusual vector. Azara's expression turned serious. The Syndicate has operatives throughout the Confederation. We can't trust anyone until we reach Alliance space. Ryan nodded, disengaging the autopilot. I'll take evasive action. We can use the asteroid field in the Helios belt to lose them. As he maneuvered the shuttle, Ryan felt Azara's hand on his shoulder, a gesture of trust and something more. Whatever was happening between them defied conventional understanding, crossing species boundaries and scientific explanation. But in that moment, with danger still pursuing them in an uncertain future ahead, it felt like the most natural thing in the universe. 3 more vessels just dropped out of FTL, Azara reported, her fingers dancing across the sensor console. Syndicate configurations, heavily armed. Ryan gritted his teeth, guiding the shuttle deeper into the Helios asteroid field. Massive chunks of rock and ice tumbled around them, creating a natural labyrinth that offered both protection and peril. They really want your research, he muttered, executing a tight roll between 2 converging asteroids. They want us dead, Anthony corrected from his seat behind them. He'd regained consciousness but remained pale, the med patch on his shoulder glowing as it worked to repair the damage. No witnesses, no loose ends. A proximity alarm blared as energy blasts streaked past their viewport, striking a nearby asteroid and shattering it into deadly fragments. Hold on, Ryan called, diving beneath the debris cloud. The shuttle shuddered as smaller pieces impacted their shields. Lena whimpered from her jump seat, and Azara reached back to squeeze her daughter's hand. It's okay, little one. Ryan won't let anything happen to us. The confidence in her voice warmed something in Ryan's chest. He'd been a loner for so long, taking odd jobs, avoiding attachments. Now suddenly, 3 lives depended on him, and strangely, it felt right. I need more power to the engines, he said, eyeing a particularly dense cluster of asteroids ahead. If we can reach that pocket, the mineral content should mask our signature. Azara studied the engineering readouts. The power couplings are already at 118% capacity. Any more and we risk overload. Can you reconfigure the shield harmonics? Ryan asked. If we match them to the asteroid composition, we could create a resonance that would make us appear as just another rock, Azara finished, already making the adjustments. Brilliant. Anthony chuckled weakly. You two make quite the team. A blast rocked the shuttle, sending warning lights flashing across the console. One of the Syndicate ships had closed the distance, its targeting systems more accurate than Ryan had anticipated. Shields at 63%, Azara reported calmly. Another direct hit like that, and we're in trouble. Ryan spotted a narrow channel between 2 massive asteroids. Time for something stupid, he announced, angling the shuttle toward the gap. Define stupid, Anthony groaned. The gap's too narrow for their larger ships to follow, Ryan explained, his hands steady on the controls. But it's also probably too narrow for us. Azara's eyes widened. Probably. Human specialty, calculated recklessness, Ryan replied with a grin that belied the tension in his shoulders. He killed the external lights and pushed the shuttle into a controlled dive. The asteroid walls loomed on either side, close enough that they could see the pitted surfaces rushing past. Shield harmonics matched to asteroid composition, Azara reported, her voice admirably steady. We're effectively invisible to standard sensors now. The channel narrowed further, metal scraping against rock as the shuttle barely squeezed through. Ryan held his breath, making micro-adjustments that were the difference between survival and being crushed. Then they were through, emerging into a relatively clear pocket within the asteroid field. Ryan immediately powered down all non-essential systems, letting the shuttle drift. And now we wait, he said softly. See if they take the bait. They watched in tense silence as the syndicate vessels prowled the outer edges of the asteroid field, scanning for their quarry. Minutes stretched into an hour, and finally the enemy ships began to disperse, moving on to search other sectors. Collective relief filled the cabin. Anthony slumped back in his seat, while Lena finally unbuckled to climb into her mother's lap. You did it, Azara said, looking at Ryan with undisguised admiration. We did it, he corrected. Your shield modifications made the difference. Their eyes held, that now familiar electricity crackling between them. Anthony cleared his throat pointedly. So, I'll just take Lena to check out the supply locker, he said, wincing as he stood. Come on, kiddo. Let's see if this fancy shuttle has any decent rations. Lena looked between her mother and Ryan, a knowing expression beyond her years crossing her face. Okay, she agreed, taking Anthony's outstretched hand. When they were alone in the cockpit, Ryan turned to Azara. That was some quick thinking with the shields. I merely implemented your idea, she replied. The concept was yours. That's what I mean about us making a good team, Ryan said, moving closer. Your scientific knowledge, my practical experience. Azara's hand came to rest on his chest, her touch sending warmth through his body. Is that what this is between us? Complementary skill sets? Ryan covered her hand with his own. You know it's more than that. My people have a saying, she murmured, her indigo eyes searching his. What begins in crisis reveals true nature. I've seen your true nature, Ryan Blackwood. You risked everything for a child you didn't know. You refused to abandon your friend. You protect what matters without hesitation. And what matters to me is growing by the minute, he admitted, cupping her face gently. Their lips met in a kiss deeper than their first, unrestrained by immediate danger. Azara's body pressed against his, cool at first but warming rapidly. Her hands explored his shoulders, his back, while his tangled in her violet hair. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Azara rested her forehead against his. In my research, she whispered, I discovered that human and Cerulean physiology is remarkably compatible, but I never imagined how it would feel to experience that compatibility firsthand. Ryan smiled, tracing the delicate contours of her face. Science is one thing. This is something else entirely. Something wonderful, she agreed, her fingers trailing down his chest in a way that made his pulse race. Something I want to explore further. The moment stretched between them, full of promise and desire. Then Azara stepped back slightly, though her hands remained on his arms. But first, we need to reach safety, she said pragmatically. The Syndicate won't give up easily. My research is too valuable. Ryan nodded, reluctantly shifting back into tactical mode. We should be able to reach New Terra Colony in about 14 hours if we skirt the main shipping lanes. And then? Azara asked, vulnerability flashing across her features. And then, Ryan said firmly, we make sure you and Lena are protected. Your research needs to be secured with people we can trust, not exploited as a weapon. The Alliance has ethical research protocols, Anthony said, returning to the cockpit with Lena. The girl carried packets of emergency rations, distributing them with solemn care. My contacts there can help arrange protective custody and legitimate scientific collaboration. Ryan watched as Azara accepted a ration pack from her daughter, the simple domestic gesture somehow profound against the backdrop of their dangerous situation. In just over a day, These three had become more important to him than anything in the past 6 years of drifting. "We should get moving," he said, powering up the shuttle systems. "Minimal energy signature until we're clear of the asteroid field." As he plotted their course to New Terra Colony, Ryan felt Azara's hand on his shoulder, a touch that conveyed trust, connection, and the promise of something he'd never dared hope for. A future that included more than just survival. 6 months later, New Terra Colony. The observation deck of the Alliance Science Division headquarters offered a spectacular view of New Terra's twin moons rising over the horizon. Ryan Blackwood stood at the railing, watching the play of light across the colony's gleaming spires. 6 months ago, he'd been a drifter with no attachments and no purpose beyond the next cargo run. Now everything had changed. "Credit for your thoughts?" Azara's voice came from behind him, followed by the gentle touch of her hand on his back. Ryan turned, still marveling at how the sight of her affected him. She wore the blue uniform of the Alliance Science Division, her violet hair braided elegantly, her indigo eyes bright with intelligence and affection. "Just thinking about how one moment can change everything," he replied, drawing her into his arms. "One kidnapped girl, one split-second decision to intervene. One human who noticed what no one else would," Azara finished, resting her head against his chest. "The title of my new research paper, by the way." Ryan laughed. "Catchy. I'm sure the scientific community will love it." "They already do. The preliminary findings on human cerulean compatibility have been peer-reviewed and accepted for publication in the Galactic Journal of Xenogenetics." "In record time," Ryan noted. "Having Admiral Larson as your personal advocate probably helped." After their arrival at New Terra Colony, Anthony had called in every favor he was owed to ensure Azara and her research received the highest level of protection. The attempted kidnapping of Lena in the Syndicate's pursuit had exposed a corruption network that reached into the upper echelons of the Confederation. The subsequent investigation had led to multiple arrests and a complete overhaul of security protocols throughout Alliance space. More importantly, it had established Azara as the leading authority on interspecies genetic compatibility, with a fully funded research division under her direction. "The Admiral is hosting a reception tonight to celebrate the formal alliance between human and cerulean scientific communities," Azara reminded him. "You'll need to wear your dress uniform." Ryan groaned theatrically. "The price I pay for falling in love with a brilliant scientist." The words slipped out naturally, though they hadn't explicitly used that term before. Azara's eyes widened slightly, then softened with emotion. "Is that what happened?" she asked, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw. "You fell in love?" Ryan captured her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. "Pretty hard not to, after everything we've been through." Their relationship had developed gradually over the past months, navigating the complexities of being the first official human cerulean couple. There had been cultural differences to overcome, biological adjustments to make, and no shortage of raised eyebrows from both species. But there had also been nights of discovery, learning each other's bodies with wonder and passion. Mornings waking up together, her cooler skin warming against his. Quiet moments of connection that transcended species barriers and defied scientific explanation. "I have something to show you," Azara said, taking his hand and leading him toward her private laboratory. Inside, holographic displays showed complex genetic sequences rotating slowly in 3 dimensions. Lena sat at a workstation, her small blue fingers manipulating a simplified version of her mother's research models. At nearly 6, she was already showing signs of her mother's scientific aptitude. "Ryan!" she exclaimed, abandoning her work to run to him. He scooped her up easily, settling her on his hip. "Hey, Squirt, solving the mysteries of the universe already?" "Mom says I'm helping with important research," she replied proudly. "The most important," Ryan agreed, looking to Azara. "So what's this big revelation?" Azara activated the main display, bringing up a complex genetic model. "This is what happens when human and cerulean DNA combine naturally," she explained. "The complementary structures create something entirely new, stronger, more adaptable, with enhanced cognitive capabilities." "In non-scientist terms?" Ryan prompted. "In non-scientist terms," Azara said, a smile playing at her lips, "any children we might have would represent an evolutionary leap forward for both our species." Ryan set Lena down gently, his heart suddenly racing. "Children? As in Ours? That's possible. More than possible, Azara confirmed. The compatibility is perfect. And after extensive testing, I can confirm there would be no health risks to either parent or child. The implications washed over Ryan. A family, a future, things he'd never allowed himself to imagine. What about the syndicate, he asked, if they were willing to kidnap children for your research before? The syndicate leadership has been dismantled, came Anthony's voice from the doorway. He entered looking fully recovered from his wound, now wearing the insignia of Alliance Security Command. The last cell was raided yesterday. We got them all. And the children they took? Azara asked. All recovered and returned to their families, Anthony confirmed. Thanks to your genetic tracking method. Ryan felt a surge of pride. In the months since their escape, Azara had developed a way to trace Cerulean genetic markers across vast distances, leading to the rescue of 17 kidnapped children from syndicate facilities. So it's really over, Ryan said. This chapter is, Anthony agreed, but I have a feeling your story is just beginning. He winked at Azara, who blushed a deeper shade of blue. I should get Lena ready for the reception, she said, taking her daughter's hand. We'll meet you there. After they left, Anthony clapped Ryan on the shoulder. Never thought I'd see the day. Ryan Blackwood settled down, playing family man with an alien scientist. Life's full of surprises, Ryan replied, unable to keep the contentment from his voice. Speaking of surprises, Anthony said, pulling a small box from his pocket. This arrived from Earth yesterday. Your grandmother's, I believe? Ryan accepted the box, opening it to reveal a simple gold ring. How did you? You mentioned it once, years ago. Said if you ever lost your mind and settled down, this was the only thing you'd want to give. Ryan stared at the ring, emotions tightening his throat. Thanks, Anthony. Just don't screw it up, his friend advised with a grin. She's way too good for you. Later that evening, as New Terra's moons cast their glow over the colony's central plaza, Ryan stood with Azara on a quiet balcony away from the reception. Music and laughter drifted from inside, where diplomats, scientists, and military personnel celebrated the new era of human-Cerulean cooperation. There's something I've been wanting to ask you, Ryan said, taking her hands in his. Azara's eyes shimmered in the moonlight. Yes. When I saw Lena being dragged through that marketplace, something made me stop. I could have walked away, minded my own business like everyone else, but I didn't. Because you're human, Azara said softly, because you see what others miss, and you act when others hesitate. Because some things are worth fighting for, Ryan corrected, dropping to one knee and presenting the ring. Some people are worth changing your entire life for. Azara Terrace, will you marry me? Her eyes widened, then filled with joyful tears. Yes, she whispered. 1,000 times, yes. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, despite the slight anatomical differences, Ryan knew with absolute certainty that this was where he belonged. With this remarkable woman who had shown him that love could transcend species, with the brave little girl who had captured his heart, and with the promise of a future neither of them could have imagined before that fateful day in a crowded marketplace. Sometimes it took a human to see what was wrong in the universe, and sometimes in making it right, they found exactly where they belonged.